Discover the incredible love story. An 18-year-old Apache girl finds unexpected hope with a Matu. Teela caught her breath as she wiped down the counter at the diner, her mind racing with thoughts of finals and potential scholarships. A straight-A student, she held onto aspirations as tightly as she clutched her grandmother's turquoise necklace. But every day felt like a struggle, a constant reminder of her Apache heritage intertwined with the relentless realities of small-town life. No one expected much from her, not the teachers who barely saw her, nor the classmates who zeroed in on her partly reserved demeanor. She trapped her dreams behind a wall of relentless hustle, brewing coffee and flipping burgers while yearning for a future filled with science and discovery. The diner buzzed with late-night patrons, the air thick with the scent of fry grease and the chatter of dreams that never reached the surface. Each night blended into the next, and Teela's heart echoed the routine until, one fateful evening, curiosity turned into connection when Matt, the visiting physicist, stepped inside. The captivating discussion about quantum mechanics sparked an urgency deep within her. Their conversations uncovered the layers of their lives, the cultural gap, the academic rigor, and the weight of familial expectations they both bore silently. Teela's heart raced as she revealed her dreams of studying physics, of becoming a scientist against the odds. Courage mingled with fear of failure, but she pressed on, driven by the glimmer of understanding that bloomed between them. But as their friendship deepened, so did the obstacles. Teela's hope flickered when she learned about the persistent biases that plagued scholarship applications and admissions offices. A heavy blanket of it draped ominously around her aspirations. Even with Matt's encouragement, the anxiety gnawed at her. The fear of disgrace was relentless. Would her hard work be enough against a system rooted deeply in prejudice? The prospect of her future began to feel like a tightrope walk over a chasm of uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amidst this turmoil, a letter arrived, its contents as unknown as it was heavy. It hinted at a hidden family legacy, financial assistance tangled in a skein of family secrets she wasn't sure she was ready to unravel. The moral dilemma smothered her. Should she embrace the past and possibly harm those she loved, or should she turn her back on a chance at freedom? With each breath, she felt that desperate tug. A void opened beneath her feet. Teela stared out the diner window, watching the shadows loitering in the darkness, her heart pounding with tenacity. Could she face the ghosts of her ancestry to reclaim her future? Would Matt stand by her side when the weight of culture and the complexities of her identity surged like waves? The taste of uncertainty clung to her tongue as she grappled with her choices. A confrontation closing in, threatening to fracture everything she hoped for. In this crucial moment, the diner transformed into a battleground where tradition met ambition, and she realized her voice might be the rope to pull everyone, even Matt, across the chasm of uncertainty. Standing at the edge of revelation, Teela held her breath, ready to dive into the depths of her heritage, unaware of how much it could reshape everything she believed. Teela felt the weight of the letter crumpled in her pocket, its presence both burdensome and electrifying. She plastered a professional smile on her face as the next wave of customers poured into the diner, but the chatter morphed into a muffled backdrop compared to the chaos swirling in her mind. Each table of satisfied patrons became an echo of life possibilities that felt just out of reach, flickering like the neon sign above the diner's entrance. As she served coffee, Teela's thoughts jumped between the promise of the scholarship, the traditional expectations from her family, and Matt's unwavering support. He stood out, illuminating her often dim world. Yet part of her feared that a deeper connection could unravel her already fragile sense of identity. Could she share the weight of her heritage with him without dragging him into the depths of her conflicting emotions? The tenderness between them felt precarious, perched on a fine line where uncertainty and hope intertwined. That evening, when the last customer departed, she noticed Matt waiting by the counter. His fingers traced the edge of a physics textbook, a symbol of his world. He caught her eye and smiled, the kind of smile that made the walls around her dreams shake ever so slightly. Every time their eyes locked, it reminded her of the shared understanding they nurtured amidst the differences. "Hey," he said, launching in like the way he approached complex concepts, clear yet full of nuance. "You up for some physics talk, or is it diner cleanup time?" A laugh escaped her despite the heaviness in her heart. "I can handle both if you can. You know, I'm still deciphering my own equations." "Let's start with simple ones," he replied, arching an eyebrow. "Like what's next for you?" "The letter. You seemed lost in thought earlier." Teela hesitated, the vulnerability she felt twisted inside her. Unfolding the complexities of her family's past seemed daunting. "It's complicated. I got something that might change everything, but it's wrapped in layers of family histories and secrets." Matt tilted his head, inviting her to continue. "Secrets can be enigmas worth unraveling. Sometimes they can open paths you never knew existed. What's it about?" She took a deep breath, her heart racing against the fear of sharing. "It talks about a legacy, a financial support system, but claiming it means confronting my family's past, which could hurt them." Matt leaned closer, his curiosity piquing. "But it's your future, isn't it? Are you willing to sacrifice it for fear of disrupting the past?" Her gaze fell to her hands, busy with wiping down the counter, reflecting the discomfort she felt inside. "I don't know. It's not that simple. My culture, my family, they shape who I am. I can't just ignore them." "Exactly," he said softly. "But your dreams are part of the equation too. There's growth in facing complex multivariable situations." A spark ignited within her. Could she merge her ambitions with her traditions in a way that honored both her roots and desires? The prospect filled her with a newfound determination. If she could confront her family history, perhaps it could empower her to navigate the murky waters ahead. As they spoke, a plan emerged, not just a path to the scholarships, but to a deeper understanding of herself and her identity. Every moment spent articulating her feelings solidified her resolve, and the gaps between her dreams and reality began to close. Yet a lingering question haunted her. Was transparency truly an act of bravery or a reckless gamble? The tangled threads of past and future loomed large before her, pulsing with potential as she refused to take the easy route. Finally, as the diner emptied and quiet descended, Teela stood at the crossroads of her decision. With Matt's unwavering gaze upon her, she felt poised to unravel not just family secrets, but the courage hidden within herself. Would she dismantle the barriers of tradition to create a trajectory that honored both her dreams and her heritage? The moment arrived. It was time to confront not just her family legacy, but her impending decision to accept the help that could redefine her future. The real question lingered. Was she ready to rediscover her identity while charging into the unknown? Teela stepped into her small apartment after an exhausting shift, the stale smell of grease a familiar companion. The weight of the letter still pressed like a phantom hand on her shoulder, a reminder that she stood at a pivotal moment in her life. The dim light flickered overhead, and as she tossed her apron on a chair, her thoughts spiraled back to her conversation with Matt. He had challenged her to consider her future, and in doing so, a surge of clarity washed over her. What if unveiling her family's hidden wounds could illuminate her own path? She knew facing her past was a gamble, but the potential payoff terrified and thrilled her. The scholarship's promise felt tangibly close, yet still a world away. Resting her elbows on the kitchen counter, she pulled out the crumpled letter, smoothing its edges with deliberate care. The potential for a brighter future beckoned like a distant horizon, each word dancing with possibility. But the fear of dragging along old family burdens pressed on her, making her stomach twist. What would be the cost of her ambition? Could she really disrupt the delicate balance of family harmony for her own gain? As she stood there, the soft ringing of her phone pulled her from her tumultuous thoughts. It was Matt, his name brightening her dim world, even through the screen. She hesitated before answering, recalling the warmth in his smile earlier that day. "Hey Teela, you still want to chat about physics?" His voice was buoyant, lifted by genuine curiosity. "Sure," she replied, knowing she had to face her thoughts eventually. "But I might lean more into personal theories rather than the laws of thermodynamics." Matt chuckled, and the sound reverberated through her thoughts, loosening the tight grip her anxiety held over her. I'm game for anything. Let's get into those complex variables you've been tossing around. They dove into an easy back and forth, but gradually the undercurrents of their earlier conversation resurfaced. As they spiraled through mathematical metaphors, she began to ponder the relationships that shaped them, his reliance on logical constructs versus her emotional entanglements. She could feel her heart speed up as the conversation shifted gears suddenly. Teela, Matt said, his tone a notch softer, if you're struggling with something, you know I'm here to listen. You don't have to go through it alone. The invitation hung in the air, a lifeline thrown out into her turbulent sea of internal conflict. Taking a breath, she made her choice. I got a letter, Matt, a scholarship offer, but it comes with another kind of weight. There's family history involved, and it's messy. She could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. Messy is fine. Sometimes it's the unsmooth paths that lead to the best discoveries. What's holding you back? Teela was struck by his clarity, the lack of judgment in his tone empowering her. The last few threads of hesitation began to unravel, replaced with words that flowed out like a river breaking through a dam. She revealed fears of failure, the daunting weight of family expectations, and the nostalgia for her culture's stories that shaped her identity. As she spoke, something shifted within her, a small fire igniting. Secrets that had previously loomed large began to transform into stepping stones, leading her closer to her goal rather than serving as obstructions. Here was someone who listened without dismissal, who inspired courage within her. Matt, I think I'm afraid. The confession hung like a curtain between them, raw and tangible. Fear isn't the end of the story, he said. It's the beginning. Embracing uncertainty can be your greatest strength. Whatever you choose, make sure it's a choice that reflects who you want to become. Her mind raced, replaying his words. Could she harness this fear as fuel for empowerment? In sharing her inner struggle, she felt an odd sense of freedom, like the start of an uncharted journey. As their conversation wound down, she knew embracing her fears was an essential part of her growth. But questions still loomed. How would her family react to the choices she might make? Would uncovering buried secrets strengthen her identity or fracture her familial ties forever? Stepping between worlds, tradition and ambition, Teela found herself positioned at a threshold, ready to confront the layers of her legacy. The moment felt electric, and with renewed determination, she realized she was more than her fears. She was on the brink of discovery, and the next days ahead suddenly felt filled with formidable potential. Yet with every shadow cast, another question emerged like a ghost at the edge of her dreams. Could she venture into this unknown terrain and emerge whole? Or would the journey unravel her entirely? The next morning came with a crispness that felt foreign in the stuffy apartment, rousing Teela from her sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing through the revelations of the previous night. The conversation with Matt had unshackled something within her, yet the weight of her family's history loomed larger than ever. Determined to seize the momentum, she grabbed her laptop and set it on the dining table, a makeshift workspace laden with crumpled papers and half-empty coffee cups. As she powered it on, her thoughts flitted through her family dynamics, her mother's traditional views, the expectations of her relatives. The very fabric that bound her now felt like chains that threatened to confine her to a life unchosen. She envisioned herself at the scholarship presentation, gripping her hands tightly, shaking with the weight of ancestral pressure, feeling every eye upon her. Yet just as swiftly, a flicker of hope ignited. What if she could weave the threads of her past into a new narrative, not one defined by oppression, but by resilience? She began to type, transforming her thoughts into tangible goals. Each tap of the keys felt like a decision crystallizing, solidifying her resolve to confront her family about their history, the pain and the pride that live side by side. The content flowed easily, detailing her excitement about the scholarship and outlining the potential it held for her personal growth. When she glanced at the time, hours had slipped by unnoticed. This newfound clarity filled the spaces that uncertainty had once crowded. She hoped to punctuate her application with her story, letting her voice resonate beyond expectations. But in the midst of this creative fervor, a knot twisted in her stomach. She had rehearsed this conversation countless times, yet fear painted her words with doubt. How will they react? The voices of her family whispered across her mind, shrouding her in anxiety about their possible rejection. And yet, how could she continue to represent them if she didn't represent herself? The tension simmered as she forced herself to close the laptop and prepare for work. She dressed with mechanical precision, her mind cycling through scenarios of her family's reactions, how to approach them, whether to inform them about the scholarship before or after the discussion about their past. Each interaction felt like a potential landmine, ready to erupt. The diner was abuzz with the morning rush, but amid the hustle, Teela found herself retreating into her thoughts. As she cleared tables and took orders, her mind wandered through the feelings of inadequacy that plagued her. She could feel her pulse quicken every time she thought about family gatherings, their expectations like a constant echo. Despite the chaos, a realization crystallized: she couldn't allow fear to dictate her truth. Encouraged by memories of Matt's words, she decided she would confront her family tonight. This wasn't simply a choice for her scholarship, it was a declaration of her own agency. When her shift ended, she took a deep breath and reached for her phone again. She typed a message to her family. "Can we sit down tonight? There's something important I need to talk about." Satisfaction washed over her as she sent the message. But as night approached, the dread returned. The discomfort of potential confrontation wove its way back into her thoughts like an insistent whisper. Would they hear her? Would they understand? The stakes felt impossibly high, a gamble between silence and resolution. As she prepared herself, the door hinged on her family responding to her request, yet uncertainty clung to her like a shadow over the horizon. Perhaps tonight would redefine everything she thought she knew about her family and herself. But as the clock ticked eerily, she couldn't shake the question lingering in the air. Would she find acceptance or fracture the fragile ties that held her together? The moment approached, shrouded in tension, carrying the weight of years unspoken. Would courage finally find its place in the tapestry of her legacy? Or would it draw her deeper into an unraveling that would reshape her forever? Teela paced in her small living room, every footfall echoing the stirring within her. The dim light overhead felt too harsh against her spiraling thoughts. With each tick of the clock, she rehearsed her lines, overlaid with a rising tide of apprehension. What if the conversation veered into territory that left scars instead of healing bonds? She squared her shoulders and inhaled deeply, convinced that strength was a choice she had to make. As the familiar shuffle of her family entering through the door reverberated in the hallway, a pang of nostalgia threatened to engulf her. Her mother's laughter always filled the room with warmth, while her father's stoicism provided a false sense of security. But now, as she stood on the precipice of confrontation, those memories felt like relics tethering her to a past she was desperate to redefine. The atmosphere thickened as they settled in the living room, their casual interactions veiling the tension beneath. Teela cleared her throat, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on her. She had grown accustomed to pleasing them, but tonight was different. Tonight she aimed to unveil herself, uninhibited by the fear of disappointing. "Can we talk about something important?" she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Her family shifted slightly, the casual demeanor fading as they sensed the gravity of her tone. "What's on your mind, honey?" her mother asked, a hint of concern threading through her warmth. Teela swallowed hard, sensing the pivotal moment at hand. She discussed the scholarship first, feeling the excitement seep through her words. The glowing possibilities surged within her as she painted a picture of what this opportunity could bring. Her passion ignited the spark of curiosity in their eyes, a glimmer she longed to see. As she spoke, she sensed a swell of pride emerging in her parents, but the air still felt charged with unspoken fears. With every sentence, she steered the course of her narrative to the heart of her truth. "But I need you to know, I can't walk this path without addressing our family legacy, the stories that shape who I am." Her father shifted, a faint furrow forming on his brow. "What are you trying to say?" he asked, cautiously probing. "I want to talk about our history, the expectations that have been passed down. I need to tell you how I feel about them." Teela kept her gaze steady, searching their faces for understanding, for any sign of acceptance. Her mother's expression hardened slightly, a defensive reaction threading into her concern. "Teela, you're overthinking this. We've always supported you. We want the best for you." "I know," she replied, urgency lacing her tone. But family support shouldn't mean sacrificing who I am. I've been trapped in this cycle of trying to meet your expectations, and I'm scared that if I don't speak up now, I'll lose myself completely." Tension rippled through the room, the air cooler with nerves and unfiltered emotions. Would they embrace her declaration, or would her words shatter their notion of who their daughter should be? Teela's heart raced as she stood at the crossroads of vulnerability and assertiveness. For a moment, silence hung like a fragile thread. She could feel the weight of her resolve press against her like an anchor, and just when she thought despair might drown her, her mother's eyes softened, recognition flickering behind them. "Teela," her mother finally said, her voice low, "it's not that we don't want you to find your path, it's just that it's hard to let go of what we know." But now, for the first time, Teela felt the power of reclaiming her own narrative. "I understand that our past shapes us, but it doesn't dictate my future. I want to carry our legacy into something new, not just as a weight, but as a foundation." As her family absorbed her words, Teela glimpsed a path unfolding. Perhaps, just maybe, a bridge could be built between her desires and their fears. Yet even as hope danced on the horizon, the struggle remained palpable. The next words could bring healing or hurt. "I believe we can redefine this history together." But would they be willing to confront the uncomfortable truths that lay beneath the surface? Would they embrace a future overlaid with authenticity rather than obscured by expectation? A question hovered, laden with possibility. Could this newfound dialogue ignite a change she once thought impossible? Teela glanced around the room, gauging her parents' reactions after her bold declaration. Her mother's brows remained knitted, a layer of sadness etched into her features as if she mourned the loss of an image she had held dear. Her father's gaze flitted between confusion and concern, an internal battle waged across his face. This moment was fraught with potential, a critical inflection point in their familial dynamic, yet the tension was like quicksand beneath her feet. "I mean it," Teela pressed, her voice gaining strength. "I need to carve my own path. One that doesn't merely stem from your legacies. There's so much more to me than what you both have envisioned for my future." Her mother's eyes glistened, betraying an unexpected vulnerability. "Teela, your father and I just want what's best for you. We've made sacrifices and—" "Exactly," Teela interjected, pushing back the wave of defensiveness that threatened to emerge. "You've made sacrifices, and I'm incredibly grateful, but it's time to shift the narrative. If we end this cycle of expectations, we can celebrate shared truths instead of resenting unfulfilled obligations. I want to pursue this scholarship not just to succeed, but to show you that I can channel our history into something beautiful, something uniquely mine." As her words crystallized in the air, the warmth of her conviction began to seep into the edges of their apprehension. Her parents exchanged glances, hesitation intertwining with acknowledgement. Slowly, Teela could feel the pulse of change igniting the air, a tug at her hope that deeper listening might cascade into understanding. "I never imagined you felt so constrained," her father finally said, his voice quaking just a fraction. "We just thought you aspired to build upon what we've given you." Teela took a breath, consciously shifting her body, drawing energy from her conviction. "Couldn't it be both? I want to honor our family's legacy by reshaping it, creating something new. Isn't that what progress is all about?" She watched them process her words, a metamorphosis occurring almost imperceptibly with each lingering moment of silence that followed. It was like cracking open a shell, revealing the tender bud within, one that needed air to breathe and flourish. However, beneath her dawning optimism lay uncertainty. Would they truly respond to her call for freedom, or would this perceived rebellion elicit a renewed need to restrict her aspirations? As the silence enveloped them again, Teela felt a pang of vulnerability seep through her. It clashed with the brave facade she had projected, and she wondered if she had taken on too much. Her heart thudded against her ribs, each pulse echoing the weight of possibility. Then her mother spoke, tentative yet determined. "If this is what you want, Teela, we need to discuss what that means. We must also be ready to support whatever comes next." The realization surged within Teela, a mixture of relief and trepidation. A path forward was taking shape, but the road would not be simple. It would tighten and twist, offering challenges she couldn't yet foresee. This was only the beginning of a larger dialogue about identity, expectations, and inevitable change. "I appreciate that," she responded softly, her voice thick with emotion. "It will take time, and I will need your support to navigate this. I can't do it alone." Her father nodded slowly, as if still gathering his thoughts. "We'll figure this out together, but know that this won't be an easy transition." "That's what makes it real," Teela whispered, her sincerity rising like a tide. The corners of her mouth hinted at a smile, knowing that the battle would be hard fought, yet the victories would be sweeter with their understanding. But just as hope began to shimmer against the shadows of doubt, another fear lurked in the background. What would happen when the expectations of the larger world outside her home began to crash against the fragile new understanding she forged within it? "Can we talk about how this might change once you're pursuing your scholarship?" her mother asked, seeking clarity. Teela inhaled deeply, bracing herself for the complexities she knew lay ahead. The conversation had only just begun, and the urgency of her resolve was about to be tested in the larger arena of her professional dreams. She squared her shoulders once more, ready to dive into the discussion that could unveil all the obstacles that awaited her. Her mind raced with strategies and comparisons. How would she transform opposing expectations into wings rather than a weight? "Let's," Teela declared, her voice now steady with newfound determination. "Let's explore every facet together." As they delved deeper into possibilities, each word felt like a step towards uncharted territory, bringing them closer together, yet forcing Teela to confront the world that awaited beyond her family's embrace. What would happen when she encountered forces that resisted her redefined identity? Would her resolve hold strong against the gale? As Teela engaged her parents in a thoughtful discussion about her scholarship aspirations, the atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to a fragile optimism. Yet, the flicker of hope mingled with a storm of apprehension brewing within her. Unbeknownst to her family, Teela was keenly aware that articulating her dreams to her parents was merely the first step. Navigating the world beyond the safety of home was where the real challenge lay. She deliberated on her potential journey as they spoke. Her mother's tentative acceptance was a lifeline, but it was the expectations outside those four walls that frightened her most. Promises made in the comfort of their living room were easily drowned out by the narratives voiced by peers and mentors, each insisting that success came with sacrifice, major, life-altering sacrifice. Was she ready to face that pressure? "Teela, have you thought about how you'll balance your studies with your other responsibilities?" her father inquired, his tone supportive yet laced with caution. His concern echoed the self-doubt lurking in Teela's mind. She could feel the familiar weight of expectations pressing down, urging her to conform, to adhere to norms that felt suffocating instead of empowering. She exhaled slowly, piecing together her thoughts like fragments of a jigsaw puzzle. "I understand that balancing everything is going to be tough," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "But I can't compromise my passion for something that feels safe. I've realized that pursuing my own journey is the only way I'll ever find my true voice." The conviction in her voice surprised even herself. It felt good to speak her truth, but tears prickled at the corners of her eyes, betraying the emotional turmoil she still grappled with. How long had she tucked her ambitions away for fear of disappointing her family? Now she stood vulnerable at the intersection of love and independence. She felt the urge to roll back her aspirations but resisted it, anchoring herself with determination. Her father softened. "What if we helped you create a plan, maybe some sort of schedule? It might ease the transition." The proposal felt like a lifebuoy tossed into turbulent waters, teetering on the brink of reassurance and control. Teela regarded him keenly. She longed for support, yet the faint stirrings of rebellion hummed beneath her surface. "I appreciate the offer, Dad, but I need to find a way to do things my own way. Planning can be useful, but I must stay true to my path, even if it means stepping outside the framework you've imagined for me." What surprised her was the realization of her newfound agency. Each conversation she navigated, each uncomfortable moment she faced with courage, was chiseling away at the doubts that once defined her. This was more than a quest for education. It was about claiming her identity against currents of familial love thick with expectation. As the conversation flowed, Teela's gaze drifted towards the window where the sky merged into twilight hues. She envisioned beyond the horizon, where she would soon step onto unleveled ground, where competition and criticism would await. The thought ignited a sense of purpose intertwined with anxiety. Would she shatter under pressure, or discover resilience she had yet to tap into? "I know I can be strong," she whispered softly, almost to herself. Her mother's voice stirred her from introspection. "Then we'll support you fully, but you need to promise us you won't shut us out if things get tough." Their words echoed in Teela's mind, a reminder that this journey wasn't a solitary one. Still, it felt like a tether both grounding and restraining. Would her steps forward transform into chains when the world pushed back harder than her family could cushion? "I will," she responded, her resolve hardening. "But I must also be willing to face challenges myself. I need to learn who I am when I'm pushed to my limits." With each passing moment, Teela came to embrace the beautiful complexity of her evolution. This wasn't merely about school or scholarship, it was a full-circle confrontation with everything that defined her. The road ahead would be long, layered and grueling, but it promised to be the architecture of her identity. As their dialogue came to a natural lull, an unsettling thought flickered through her mind. Other forces awaited her, opponents who might not support her ambitions. Teela's heart raced at the impending confrontations. Who would she need to contend with? And in those moments of resistance, would she find the strength to defend her dreams? The conversation was just the beginning, a small ember igniting the flame of her journey. What lay beyond was a multiplying force, both chaos and clarity, challenging everything she thought she knew. Would she rise, or would she bend? It was time to find out. Teela's thoughts swirled like the autumn leaves dancing in the breeze outside her window. Each gust was a reminder of the freshness of change that awaited her. The conversation with her parents had felt significant, a turning point in her life. But as she lay in bed later that night, uncertainty had a way of creeping in like shadows in the dim light. The hours passed slowly, each tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. With each beat, a relentless question nagged at her. What if her ambitions were too lofty? Sleep eluded her as she wrestled with the vision of herself standing at the threshold of adulthood, balancing on the edge of expectation and self-fulfillment. The safety nets her parents offered felt secure, yet they threatened to smother the very dreams she sought to liberate. She sat up in bed, her heart racing. What would her first steps into this uncharted territory look like? She had to create a portrait of her aspirations, brush strokes of determination against the canvas of familial expectations. Suddenly, the weight of decision pressed heavily upon her. Should she stay rooted in her comfort zone, or dare to stretch beyond and become someone new? In the morning, she found herself corresponding with a mentor from the scholarship program she had been eyeing. A series of emails exchanged, filled with questions and advice, illuminated the path ahead, but didn't extinguish her fears. "Success comes from learning to adapt and push through those uncomfortable moments," her mentor wrote. Teela savored each word. Adapting was one thing, but she felt an instinctual fear of losing herself in the process. Determined, she headed to the library, seeking solace in the knowledge that surrounded her. Rows and rows of books beckoned her like wise old friends, filled with secrets she longed to uncover. In that space, wrapped in the scent of paper and ink, she skimmed over biographies of those who had tread the challenging path before her, visionaries who broke barriers with grit and resilience. She stumbled upon a particular story that made her pause. A young woman, coming from a modest background, had fought systemic doubt and turned her seemingly insurmountable challenges into stepping stones. The woman's struggles mirrored Teela's apprehensions, yet the triumphs celebrated the spirit of independence. Teela's heart thumped with recognition. If this woman could carve her space, why couldn't she? Sitting cross-legged on the polished floor, Teela wrote her own story out loud in her mind, how she planned to approach this scholarship, to foster courage in her studies, and to seek collaborations with peers who shared her ambitions. But beyond that, it was a story of resilience and self-discovery, where she would not just complain against the tide, but learn to swim through it. As the library's closing time approached, a flicker of conviction ignited within. She plotted her next steps meticulously. She would reach out to fellow applicants, form study groups, perhaps even initiate workshops. Every opportunity could be a potential ally on her journey, a chance to infuse others' stories into her own narrative of growth. But the thought of rejection and confrontation loomed like a storm cloud at the edge of her newfound clarity. Would these collaborators support her, or would she meet hostility from those who deemed her unworthy? Would she have the resolve to stand firm amidst challenges? She exited the library, stepping into a twilight that mirrored the hues of her aspirations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the world around her became softer yet more intimidating. She realized the stakes were rising, and so was her awareness of what lay ahead. The crossroads of personal growth loomed ever larger. But faced with this daunting reality, she felt a potent mix of fear and excitement swirl within her. Would she be able to harness the strength to confront the inevitable challenges? Or would vulnerability unravel her determined momentum? Teela let the cool breeze brush against her skin, propelling her forward toward the unknown that awaited. The next chapter of her story beckoned, filled with uncertainty but colored with possibility. What awaited Teela in the sometimes unforgiving landscape of ambition? Would her resolve evolve, or would she find herself grappling with new forces that endeavored to halt her ascent? The path before her was still untrodden, but she knew now more than ever she would step boldly into that future. Teela's breath hitched as she stood before her bedroom mirror, the faint reflection staring back at her a mixture of determination and trepidation. Today was no ordinary day. It was the day she had decided to step onto that uncertain path. The room felt charged with expectation, as though the walls themselves were waiting for her to make her move. Each brush of her hair added clarity to her thoughts, striking a balance between preparation and anxiety. She scrutinized her appearance, noting how perfectly the fabric of her clothes conformed to her movements. She wanted to present herself as confident, yet beneath the surface she felt a wave of apprehension. Who would she meet today? Would they see the ambition swelling within her heart? Once the final touches were complete, she took a deep breath and stepped outside. The world greeted her with a mix of excitement and apprehension, the chilly air invigorating her senses. Today was the day she would reach out to her fellow scholarship applicants, inviting them to share their journeys and, hopefully, cultivate a collective momentum. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence of her thoughts. It was a message from her mentor, offering support. Remember, confronting others is just as much an act of courage as confronting yourself. Let your vision be your compass. Reading those words gave her an unexpected sense of serenity, as if the universe was reassuring her that she wasn't alone in this venture. Teela made her way to the cafe where they had agreed to meet. With each step, she wrestled with her doubts. What if they dismissed her ideas? What if they decided they preferred solitude over collaboration? The weight of these questions threatened to derail her resolve, but with each passing moment, she also felt a flicker of empowerment. This was her opportunity to take charge of her narrative, to create a formidable support system that could propel them all forward. As she entered the cafe, a familiar sense of atmosphere enveloped her. The scent of fresh coffee intertwined with laughter and soft conversations. She spotted a group at the back table, their faces lit with anticipation. Teela's heart raced as she approached, and she felt both nervous and exhilarated. Would they listen? Would they understand? "Hey, I'm Teela," she said, her voice steadying as she joined them. They greeted her warmly, their smiles inviting rather than wary. A wave of relief washed over her. They were just as eager to connect, sharing their own fears and aspirations. Each story unfolded like a layer of an onion, revealing their shared insecurities and ambitions. As they exchanged narratives, Teela began to recognize the potential within this collective. With each insight shared, a seed of trust took root. She found her voice blossoming, contributing ideas for joint study sessions and collaborative workshops. The synergy of their dreams painted a vivid picture of the future, one she hadn't anticipated finding in that cafe. Yet as the conversation flowed, a shadow flickered in the corner of Teela's mind. The risk of failure. What if her reliance on this new group shattered her dreams? What if confrontation arose, disagreements fracturing the camaraderie they had started to build? Her conviction faltered momentarily, conflict brewing just beneath the surface. But the connection they forged continued to grow, and a surprising element developed, a shared conviction to confront their communal challenges head-on. They vowed to support each other, swaying from moments of vulnerability to bursts of determined laughter. It felt powerful, climbing beyond individual fears and evolving into something that intertwined their fates. However, just when Teela felt a sense of peace, a familiar face swept across the room. a former classmate who had always defined the standard of success in her eyes. A chill of anxiety ignited within her. Could she stand resilient against the judgmental gaze? Would this confrontation unravel her fragile confidence? The air shifted, the laughter around her faded momentarily as she locked eyes with that peer. In that heartbeat, a tension filled the space between them, unfolding a myriad of questions. Would she retreat into self-doubt, or reclaim her narrative with the strength she had just begun to discover? Teela felt the stakes heighten, the path ahead growing ever more complex as she faced not just the challenges of collaboration, but the specter of her own insecurities once more. Would she falter or rise in the face of judgment? As the moment stretched, she could feel the gravity of her choice. The time had come to face reality, and in that instant, she understood that her journey was far from over. Teela emerged from the swirling cocoon of anxiety and anticipation, her heart pounding as she turned back to her group of newfound allies. The laughter they had just shared felt distant now, overshadowed by the weight of recognition looming at the cafe's entrance. The familiar face of her classmate Carter ignited a mix of fear and determination within her. Would she let his imposing presence derail her trajectory, or would she stand firm in the identity she had begun to carve for herself? As if sensing her internal struggle, one of her new friends leaned in, their voices intermingling with quiet encouragement. "Hey, you okay?" The genuine concern pulled her back to the moment, reminding her that she was not alone in this journey. Teela inhaled, grounding herself. "Yeah, just a little caught off guard." With resolve hardening her voice, she set her sights on Carter, determined not to let his judgmental gaze define her. "Let's just keep going," she said, her tone colored with newfound assertiveness. The group nodded, their camaraderie flowing like a current of support. United, they shifted back to discussing study plans, and Teela found herself weaving her ideas into their conversation seamlessly. But as her laughter mixed with theirs, Teela felt the weight of uncertainty still. Deep within, a nagging doubt whispered that her perceived success could still crumble in the face of outside scrutiny. After a simmering discussion about their shared goals and strategies, Teela resolved that if she were ever going to overcome that uncertainty, she would have to confront it head-on. As the meeting drew to a close, Teela caught Carter's eye. The moment stretched, tension crackling like static in the air. Carter, with his polished confidence, strode over, interrupting her reverie. "Teela, right?" he said, a smirk playing on his lips, as though the past years of rivalry were echoing in their interaction. "Yes," she replied, determined, "and I'm doing well, thanks." His brow raised, a hint of skepticism flicked across his face. "What's this? Group study sessions now? Aren't you worried about holding them back?" The statement dripped with condescension, and an inner fire ignited within her. Instead of retreating, Teela stood her ground. "Actually, we're planning to lift each other up. We believe in collaboration over competition. You should try it sometime." Her voice was firm, blending confidence with passion, as she refused to let his words anchor her back into a mindset of inadequacy. A flicker of surprise crossed Carter's face. Perhaps he had expected her to shrink into herself. But what emerged was a Teela transformed, one who was ready to face not only her past insecurities, but also the influences that had shaped her. "Good luck with that," he replied, though this time his tone lacked conviction. She could sense the shift in their dynamic. No longer was she a girl wrestling with self-doubt. She had become a woman advocating for her vision. As he stepped away, the relief washed over her like a tidal wave, eclipsing her previous hesitation. She turned back to her group, buoyed by the experience, and shared a triumphant look with her friends. They had witnessed a boundary broken, a moment of self-definition that had transformed doubt into determination. Days turned into weeks, and with each interaction at the cafe followed by study sessions, Teela felt her professional aspirations solidifying. Her mentorship program flourished, as her fellow applicants rallied around her ideas. Each accomplishment fortified the understanding that she was shaping not just her future, but also redefining what success meant to her. In the end, her unwavering commitment to her goals brought undeniable recognition. Teela was awarded the scholarship, her accomplishments celebrated not only by the program, but also by her family. Stripped of the oppressive weight of expectation, she stood proud as she delivered her acceptance speech, a moment that married her Apache heritage with her ambitions, honoring both in a way she had never thought possible. From the shadows of her doubts emerged a beacon of solid confidence, thanking her family for their support and recognizing the intricate threads of her ancestry. Teela felt the bond between her identity and her achievements strengthen. She had fully integrated her dreams with her true self. As she stood enveloped in applause, her heart soared with pride, and at that moment, realization dawned. The path to success was not paved with the conformity of expectation, but rather the courage to confront both her past and the challenges that lay ahead. So much had changed since the quiet nightly shifts at the diner, and now she felt like she could conquer anything. Embracing her authentic self allowed her to achieve not just academic success, but personal fulfillment like she had always envisioned. Teela had transformed. There was no doubt about it. Now it was your turn. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click matters. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Teela's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Your support fuels the power of personal transformation stories.